Good afternoon. I was able to go and inspect really significant flooding that we still see. I mean, I saw, homes that had almost up to the rooftop still, different buildings, RVs that were almost totally submerged. So this is a big deal. I know a lot of folks have focused on some of the really catastrophic impacts that we saw along our southwest coast, and those are obviously very severe impacts. But this is such a big storm, brought so much water that you're having basically what's been a 500-year flood event here in DeSoto County and in some of the neighboring counties. So they've done a really good job of scrambling to help their residents. We have not only pods here, points of distribution for food and water and other type of essentials like toiletries. They also have basically pods that they can take and set up that are more mobile, because some of the roads are still flooded, and so people don't necessarily have the same connectivity. So I think that they're doing a really good job. Obviously, our National Guard is heavily involved in running those pods, and we're happy to do that. A lot of food and water in this area, writ large. And we're happy that these pods got set up so quickly. Normally it takes about 96 hours to get pods set up post-storm. We had pods set up starting yesterday in many places around the state, and so we're going to continue to keep working. The counties who have debris and other problems, get that going now on the removal. Hire contractors. Do what you got to do. You have 30 days from the time this was approved to get 100% reimbursement for all your debris removal. And I know that the debris is significant in some places, maybe surprisingly a little lighter in others, at least compared to like Hurricane Michael. Nevertheless, you have an opportunity to get that paid for 100%. And when you're talking about more rural communities in particular, those costs can be significant. So please take advantage of that. Florida has been approved across the major affected counties for 100% reimbursement for debris removal. But you got to go out and hire the people, pay them to be able to do it. If you don't do that, and you wait till after the 30 days, and you're not going to get 100% reimbursement, and that will absolutely pinch your local budgets. Power. We've got about 93% that are online throughout the state. There have been continuous progress being made, even in places like Lee. I think FP&L's got 50% of theirs. Now the electric co-op only has 3%, and we've asked to make sure there's mutual aid there so we can get that moving as quickly as possible. But if you think about the 42,000 linemen that were stationed when the storm hit, and at that time, I mean, they were stationed everywhere, but when they first got here, I mean, you figure the last trucks probably started arriving first thing Tuesday morning because the storm was coming in at least southwestern Florida. So maybe a little later in the day Tuesday, not knowing where the storm would necessarily go, they were able to fleet all across the state immediately. And we had people first thing Thursday morning in a lot of the places where the storm had passed. So we appreciate that. I've been able to meet with linemen from all across the country who are here in Florida helping out. And to have, I think today they'll pass over 2 million restorations for a storm that really, they started full statewide power restoration efforts on Friday morning. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 full days, and you have done over 2 million. So that's very much appreciative. Obviously, being without power for a little bit of time is still an inconvenience. Being without power for longer than that is a real drag, and we understand that. And I'm just glad that there's a lot of resources working to get that done as quickly as possible. Fuel. There's fuel. We got massive fuel in Southwest Florida. The ports are open. Not all the facilities they don't all have power or generators, so the gas pumps aren't going to work. We've actually have a generator or two coming down to this county so that if some of the gas stations don't have power by then, they can use a generator to get that fuel pumping more, because there's been an issue with fuel in this area. I think it's more tied to the power than the actual fuel supply, but nevertheless, we stand ready to help with both of those because we understand how important it is, to get the fuel moving forward. We also brought to DeSoto County some of the Elon Musk Starlink satellite devices, so that will be able to be at pods. It'll be able to be with first responders wherever they think it works. One of the reasons we're putting these things at pods pods is because you have people come get food and water. If they're cut off and their cell phone's not working, they can get online and they can contact their loved ones. And so that's something that's very important, and we want to make sure that we're able to do that across the state of Florida. I was also in Northport, in Sarasota County prior to this, and I saw very similar levels of flooding. I mean, really, really significant, far more than what you saw the day after in Lee and Charlotte counties. And so I know that a lot of the media attention is on those the destructive scenes on the coast, and rightfully so. It was a really, really significant impact. But you have all throughout this part of Florida, into central Florida, you've had a lot of standing water. They think it's crested here, and it was higher yesterday. So hopefully we continue to see that going down, because it's not just that it's interrupted people's homes, which it has. It's interrupting transport. It's interrupting commerce because some of these roads still aren't passable. So we're sensitive to any help we can provide from a DOT perspective. But I think at the end of the day, the waters just need to recede more. But they're really, really significant. It's making it difficult for folks. We understand that. The First Lady has been instrumental in doing our FloridaDisasterFund.org. If you want to go and donate, you can do it. They've raised over $22 million in just a few days. So that's going to be money that'll be able to be accessed by reputable charitable organizations that can be put on the ground to help people in need. FEMA has approved individual assistance for all the affected counties, basically, that we've asked for, and that offers support. But that's a bureaucracy, and there's regulations and certain things. So you may have needs that FEMA just can't meet. And so while we encourage people to sign up for individual assistance with FEMA, and over 100,000 Floridians have done so, we also understand that there's going to be needs beyond that. And so enlisting private charity and the private sector is something that we're really looking forward to do. Also, we've seen people from all across the country come to help. I was just over across, I guess it's not really supposed to be a river, but we had to take a boat to get because of all the flooding on the other side. And you had folks from Missouri that were there that came down to help provide meals. I was in Naples. We had people come down from Asheville, North Carolina with a charity to help provide meals. So that's really shown just the generosity that we have in this country. So many different Floridians from across the state have pitched in. I was just there, see all these law enforcement. You see them from all over the state coming down to the affected areas. Some of these areas in like Southwest Florida, they were prepared to go help Tampa Bay because people said the storm was going to hit Tampa Bay, when we went to bed on Monday night. Well, it turns out now you have people from Tampa, some of that area is down here. We have people from the Panhandle coming down to this part of Florida to help out. So we really appreciate that. That's been a really, really great effort. A lot of work to do, but we're continuing to make progress. Okay, anybody have questions? Yes, ma'am. So there's going to be set up probably starting Tuesday morning in most of the affected areas. I know we're going to start in Lee and Charlotte. Jimmy Petronas, who's the chief financial officer for Florida, is including near these disaster recovery centers with FEMA insurance villages where the insurance carriers will be on site. So that you can provide evidence of the damage and get busy filing the claims. And so he's done a good job to bring those folks to the table. And my message is basically, we want to get these claims processed as quickly as possible. Obviously, the state is not running this. I mean, these are private carriers, but it's very important. I'd also remind people that the damage you have is different in terms of the policies. If you have wind damage, that's a typical homeowner's insurance policy. Here, I think a lot of that's going to be flood insurance damage. And so the National Flood Insurance Program, they're going to have representatives at the DRCs and these insurance villages. So I think from what I've seen in the state, I think most of the damage has been from water rather than wind. There has been wind. I mean, obviously, if you look at Fort Myers Beach and you see homes obliterated, that was obliterated because you had almost a Cat 5 storm touch landfall there. So the flood policies are different than the homeowner's policies. Your homeowner's policy almost never will include coverage for flood and vice versa. So people should just understand that and be prepared to have the proper policy based on the damage. It's important, document the damage, take photos, do all that. We've spoken with FEMA and about the NFIP, the flood program, and we're just like, look, we want to process this quickly. I think they're receptive to doing that, and it helps if you have the photos. I mean, if you show a photo of the water line being 5 feet in your house, what are they going to say? I mean, your house got flooded, and so we want to see those done expeditiously. We are in Pine Island. FDOT, under my direction, is going to construct temporary passage by car where the bridge was destroyed. So it's not going to be a full bridge. You're going to have to go over it probably 5 miles an hour or something, but it will at least let people get in and off the island with their vehicles. So I've approved that. They're going to start working on that this week. And, it's not an overnight thing, but it's not going to take months and months. And so we're sensitive to that. People talk about maybe running boats and all this stuff. Honestly, I think that it's better to just kind of build a little bit of makeshift road there. Let's get people on and off the island. Those folks, they need access to the mainland, but they do not want to evacuate off their island. They want to be on the island. And we understand that. They're island folks. They have a lot of pride in their community. And we want to make sure that we're doing what we can. So we have approved. We'll be funding that, and that will be something that will begin probably tomorrow, but certainly by Tuesday.
Governor, you've reviewed the lead operations cease on your visits across the state. Can you give us a little more insight on those operations?
I've done what?
You've refused to allow these operations, rescue operations, to cease.
Oh yeah, no. The rescue operations are ongoing. There's been, if you look, we actually have great data about the sweeps that have occurred. Obviously, if someone is called into 911, they will go and respond to that. If somebody has put out some type of message that they're somewhere and they need help, they will do that. But we also understand that not everyone has communications. So you've had from the beginning a really concerted effort on the most impacted areas. So think about like Inglewood and Charlotte. Think about Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach, Pine Island, those areas, and they have gone through most of those areas and swept them. And so that's something that is good. It makes sure that people aren't falling through the cracks. Fortunately, the initial rescue operations, people wanted to be taken off either the beach or the island who had gone through the storm. As the days progressed, a lot of residents had settled in. They were thankful. A lot of them just want to stay put in their homes, and we understand that. I mean, a search and rescue is voluntary. If you want to be rescued, you will. If somebody does not want to leave their home, of course, they are not going to do. But it's been a team effort. There's more urban search and rescue teams in Florida now than in any one place in American history since September 11th. And if you think about it, there's been massive events that have happened since September 11th, and we have more here. And part of that is just a reflection that, yes, it was a very powerful hurricane. It was a big hurricane, and it cut across the entire state of Florida. I mean, some of these other major hurricane events, it hits one spot, and then that's really where you tend to. Well, this is hundreds and hundreds of miles, and so it's a big deal. And they focus on, and we have Coast Guard who's been great. Obviously, urban search and rescue, local law enforcement's been fantastic, and they'll focus on maybe somebody being helicoptered out of Fort Myers Beach or some of those, and rightfully so. But the local law enforcement across the state, these water rescues with the flooding. Now, some of those folks that are rescued, the water is up to certain, they may not be in imminent danger of a fatality, but they need to be rescued from that situation. So you've had so many of those water rescues that have taken place here in this county. Hardy, they've done it. Central Florida, you name it. So it's really been great. I think people have worked really, really hard. And I was there down at the Surfside collapse in 2021, and we had the urban search and rescue teams. The two Miami teams were there from the beginning, and that was really tough because as you're doing the pile, they're finding a lot of people, and it was very difficult. This one, they were able to get in there so early, that they were actually able to bring a lot of people to safety, and so they deserve a lot of credit, and we're really proud of all the great work that they've done. So the questions about power, and just to correct, they've done a great job. They're not my crews; they're their crews. They're doing it now. We paved the way with the state of emergency early and made sure they could be pre-staged. We've cleared roads for them and everything. But ultimately, these utilities have really, really worked hard to do it. So give them a lot of credit. Everyone from FPL to Duke to the different municipal electric who've worked hard. So they do. So the question is, we have 7% without power statewide right now. What's the prognosis for extended outages? If you end up having 2+ million restored by close of business tonight, that will be a world record probably in terms of, especially for how big it is in the state. But that's still going to leave some other folks. What I think that they will tell you in the utilities is the areas that are reconnects will come online in relatively due time. They can't guarantee you're going to get it today, but it isn't going to take a month. Some of the areas like Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach, some of those, they may have suffered real severe structural damage to the underlying infrastructure. So the question on that becomes, do you have to rebuild the infrastructure? And if you do, that's just going to take a little bit longer time. It's not clear to me exactly how many are going to be rebuilt. There is going to be some rebuild for sure. I was just in Northport, and I don't know if it's going to require a rebuild, but there's still flooding in places that they would need to go to be able to reconnect some of the power lines. And so obviously it needs to be safe for them to do it. So some of that I think is a little bit dependent on the circumstances. But I will say, if you are in an area where they tell you that they have to structurally rebuild rather than restore, then you should expect longer outages. If it's just a restoration, that's something that's on an easier timetable than if you have to rebuild everything. Now, there's infrastructure that goes into this. We've asked all the utilities to work together. If some municipal co-op needs a part and they don't have, we want FPL, these others to help. And they've said that they would. And so we think that's good. We also announced yesterday a public request for Lee County's electrical cooperative to accept mutual aid from other electrical utilities to get it going quicker. Because right now, FPL has about 50% of their Lee customers restored. The Lee County Co-op or electrical only has 3%. And it's our view that if you had more resources, that may make some of that better. Some of that's going to be a rebuild, but at least get as much on as quickly as possible that you can.
Downtown Arcadia, historic area of the whole county, has been hit really bad, man. Again, devastation, buildings down. It just got over Irma, some of the buildings themselves. I just what's the state doing to help out those businesses? A lot of them are empty shops, small town shop owners.
So what will happen is, because we're in a disaster, we have a disaster declaration, there will actually be opportunities through the Small Business Administration to get some bridge loans. We also, the Department of Economic Opportunity, we have some possible ways where we can help, particularly over the short term. And part of it is, some businesses have suffered damage. Some businesses, they need the power to be able to go back into business. And if they don't have running water, power, some of that, then they're kind of on the sidelines. I know some have generators. I know some are doing other things, but it's not easy. And so we're sensitive. So think about what federal government opportunities there are, and there are some. It's not going to give you everything you need. It's there to kind of help you get through it. And then our programs at the state level, we're going to see, what we have available to be able to help folks. But I want whatever we do have available to be able to be dispensed, particularly in some of these areas that are a little bit more off the radar. I mean, people are focusing on certain areas, and understandably, but in reality, this is far and wide. It's in populated areas like Cape Coral. It's also in more rural communities like we're seeing over here. So we're all in it, and we all want everyone to do well. Okay, guys, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Where are we going? Okay.